Good evening. Welcome to the King's Academy. Thank you for coming tonight. Some of you are parents. Some of you probably not parents here at King's Academy. That's okay. We think this is valuable information. We will do a drawing at the end for $50 either in the school store or the cafeteria. Always welcome. Tonight, Dr. Nathan Oliver is going to be speaking about parenting the iGeneration. We appreciate you coming out tonight and talking. And questions at the end? Questions at the end. So write your questions down if you get the opportunity to ask questions. Nathan, come on up.
Thank you. Good evening. Welcome. Well, my name is Nathan Oliver, and I'm a mental health counselor here in the area. Both my wife and I, she's a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm a licensed mental health counselor. We also have a Christian play therapist that works with children 7 and under in our office as well. I've been here about almost 4.5 years now. Was born and raised up in Denver, Colorado, and met a Florida girl, and so ended up down here. Never thought I'd live in Florida, but I love it. Probably wouldn't go back. I like being here. So this evening we're going to talk about a really fun topic, parenting the iGeneration. We're going to talk about some of the unique dynamics with the generation that I'm sure the majority of your children are in here, as well as some general parenting skills that kind of reach through all generations. But we are going to spend the majority of the time speaking about the iGeneration. Before we do that, I want to take this opportunity to show off my children. Any opportunity I have to do that, I take advantage of. We skipped. That's Olivia. All right, so as you can tell, she likes to dress herself, and we allow her to do that on pretty much any occasion. She looks just like her mother, acts just like her mother. She's very fun. She's a strong-willed child, so she takes a lot of energy and a lot of work. But I love that in a child. I love seeing that in a child. She's got a lot of spunk and tenacity. And this little guy right here is Jackson. He's 18 months old. We adopted him 18 months ago. We were there the day he was born, and we finalized that adoption after 15 months of having him in our home. And he is a great joy and a pleasure to have as well. The two of them get along quite well. He smiles all the time. He's our snuggly one. Olivia never snuggled. He just holds on to you. He's like a backpack. You just kind of attach and go along. So he's a great little guy. So we're at that stage. We're not at the teenager stage. Anyone have teenagers? Yes. I love two most motivated groups of people that I ever work with are engaged couples, because they're still excited about marriage, right? You know, they still got those rose-colored glasses on. And parents of teenagers. And parents of teenagers, well, I should say parents of infants, 10 weeks and younger, they come in with these wide eyes, like, what do we do? I feel powerless. Parents of teenagers, though, tend to be the most wide-eyed and have the most motivation when we meet with them, because there are definitely some unique challenges that happen with that age. All right, so before we get into the specifics of parenting the iGeneration, I want to talk about some core essentials that are kind of going to be overarching with the details of the content tonight. Parenting is a ministry, and it is one in which we have the opportunity to make disciples. It's disciple making, and it's a really unique opportunity because we have our children. We have a great degree of exposure to them, and as a result, a great degree of influence. It's very hard, and it takes all that we have. I love how the scriptures refer to parents and children, and there's this unique analogy not used with anything else, that our children are like arrows. You guys heard of that? You know, they're like arrows in our quiver. And so, you know, we get almost like this weapon that you're launching into the world because you have this unique influence to shape and to mold them unlike any other experience you have in your life. So I take it very seriously, and that's why I love to work with parents and talk with parents. All right, so I'm going to give you the number one rule of parenting. Most of you probably already know it. It's there in your notes. This is the number one rule in parenting. And it's consistency. So when you are consistent with your children, no matter what age they are at, you're like an anchor for them. You know, you're like this secure base from which they can go explore the world, but they know that whenever they're engaging with you, they're always going to get the same thing. So you're consistent in discipline, and you're consistent in praise, and consistent in encouragement, that they get the same thing all the time with you. Children thrive with this. My wife when we started out, we were in downtown Denver doing in-home therapy. I did child protection services, so I work with young children and parents that were not fit to parent, according to the state. And my wife worked with adolescents who'd been adjudicated. All right, they committed crimes, any variety of crimes. And so when she went into the homes, she spent more time working with the parents, though, than adolescents, right? Because often there was a parenting issue. It wasn't necessarily the child who was 14. And when she taught these parents consistency, which they never had, it was amazing to see the change in these adolescents. And they got through their court system, and they were doing great, and they were thriving when the parents got on board and they had consistency. So this works across the board, and we're going to talk about how to integrate that with this unique generation, because this generation takes a lot more energy to be consistent because of the technology today and the ways that they can get around that. And the second important rule is unconditional love. Right? So Scripture refers to this in the Greek as the agape love. It's that God-like love that we have the opportunity to represent God to our children. And so in unconditional love, this does not exclude discipline. Now, discipline and punishment are not the same word, right? Discipline is functionally to teach. Now, punishment is sometimes a part of discipline, but for the most part, you are teaching your children. And so unconditional love involves discipline, but that your children know that no matter what they do, no matter who they become, no matter where they go, that they will receive the same amount of love from you. That they don't have to earn it, that it's not conditional. Right? And again, they thrive in this environment. It sets them free of a lot of fears. And when children live in fear, they often act out. So, consistency and unconditional love. That's like the big picture. And we're going to come back to those. But those are those core parenting essentials that we want to kind of put out there before we get into iGeneration. Now, I know Glenn had said you can do questions at the end, but if you guys, with this group, if you guys have any questions at all while I'm talking, feel free to raise your hand. You won't be interrupting me. I'm a counselor. I love questions, so feel free. If you would prefer to talk to me afterwards, you can write your questions down, bring them up, or ask them at the end. But your questions are very important, and often there's probably someone else with that same question, so it would be beneficial to others to ask it as well. All right, so let's talk about the iGeneration. And this is not in your notes here, but this is just going to kind of set it up. All right, this is the generation that follows the millennials. So generations used to be a lot longer, right? You heard, like the baby boomers, we hear about them all the time. The baby boomers. It's a big generation. A lot of people in that generation, too. Generations, because of the advancements in technology and society, are getting shorter and shorter and shorter. There's more specification. So the millennials, which is my generation, Generation Y. Before that was Generation, your alphabet? There you go. Heard of them? Generation X. So this is actually Generation Z. A couple of nicknames for it. The iGeneration, that's a play on iTunes, iPad, the whole Macintosh thing. And also the 9/11 generation, some people will call them as well. Although it includes some children younger than or older than that. But commonly used term is the iGeneration. Born 1997 and after, roughly in that range. 1997 and after. Millennials be 1981 or so and after. I was born in 82. All right. All right, so this is where we're going to start getting in. You guys probably want to take some notes here. This is a highly connected generation. Now, by that I mean digitally connected. They are not highly emotionally or relationally connected. If anything, they are emotionally and relationally stunted compared to generations before them because they are so highly digitally connected. And I'm going to talk about what I mean in that. Children in this generation, there's a sensory overload for them. There are so many options. I had my daughter alone ask me today if she could watch a DVD, play on the iPad, text something on my phone, and she's 4.5 years old. Right? And we don't allow much technology at all for her at this age. But she knows all those things. And there's a sensory overload for a 4.5-year-old. None of those things existed when I was 4.5 years old. You couldn't text. There wasn't an iPad. And we didn't watch DVDs. We watched VHSs, but even then we didn't watch those that much. Maybe cartoons on Saturday morning. A lot of your children have more technology in their pocket than NASA had when they sent the man to the moon. You realize that? All right, they got that in their pocket. I came out, and there was an 8-year-old playing on his iPhone in our lobby. He's 9. There was a 9-year-old playing on his iPhone. He was playing this very violent video game that used to be like, it's called Counter-Strike, and it's a PC game, but just there on his phone. I mean, he used to take a big computer, and we'd play that in college, in the middle of the night, connecting with people, and he's just doing it right there on his phone. Same graphics, everything. It's amazing. There's a sensory overload, though. They're highly connected. I used to be the director of counseling at Palm Beach Atlantic University, and we would have parents call us sometimes highly concerned because they would look at their children's texting and how the amount of texts they're sending. And many times they say, our kids are sending 10 to 15,000 texts a month. And that's not terribly uncommon for them to send anywhere from 8, 10, 15,000 texts in 1 month. I had a parent once refer to technology as box time. All right, I like that term, box time, when they're interacting with a box, which you're doing right now with this and this and this. Okay, computers, PowerPoint, projectors. There was a study done that averaged out the amount of box time, any kind of technological interaction that children in iGeneration have. And on average, it was 15 to 20 hours a day. 15 to 20 hours a day. Whether it be at school, whether it be at home, whether it be with friends, engaging with any kind of technology in the car, music, upwards of 15 to 20 hours a day of box time. And that's what sensory overload. So they're very connected digitally, but not connected relationally. And they are most likely to express hard emotions, whether that be love, all right, or anger online versus in person. They're not going to experience that as much in person. They feel more free because there's more anonymity through technology to express things emotionally, and that's often what they do. And that'll play out at school the next day, but most of it happens outside of school in many ways, and then the drama plays out, comes to school later. All right. They are the most ethnically diverse, including social circles. So they are far more ethnically diverse than Generation X, more ethnically diverse than the millennials. Great book, Millennials Rising, talks a lot about the millennial generation. And they're more likely to have ethnically diverse friendships and social groups. So they're not as divided as generations before them. And that's a great positive for this generation. You see they're less likely to believe in the American dream. Now, a lot of people refer to them as the 9/11 generation. These are children that were born in America unlike we were born in. See, our America was immune to threat, really. Unless you were there at the attack of Pearl Harbor, most of us don't remember that. So for most of us, our America was immune to attack, to evil, to foreign invasion. But these children grew up in a time and are born in a time of 9/11, and so they're less likely to believe in the American dream and take that security in their nation. In addition, most of them have grown up in a recession or time of recession. And so they are more uncertain about their futures, or about the future in general, about the future of this nation, than generations before them. Studies have shown that as well. All right. And this is the first generation that is expected to earn less than their parents. Never before has a generation been expected to earn less than their parents. That's in part due to recession, constriction of the economy. In addition to, we are in an economy growing more and more dependent on dual income. And so now this is inflation. It takes into account inflation, but they are actually expected to earn less than their parents are earning. All right. And this last point here on this slide, let me go back. I skipped it. That's an important one too, entitlement. But can you go back one, Jeff? It's not showing up there. All right. Well, you have it in your notes. It's less likely to marry. You see that there in your notes? That's a real interesting statistic there. And I work a lot with marriages and with marriage groups around the county and around the nation. And one interesting thing that's been happening in marriage lately is the divorce rate has been declining. And so we got really excited about that. And you say, oh, great, the divorce rate's declining. But you guys know why that is? Because the marriage rate is declining. All right, so the percentage is the same. It's just the rate is less, but the percentage is the same, if not higher. And so this is a generation here that is far more likely to do cohabitation without commitment ever, because the institute of marriage is losing its prominence, is losing its credibility in society and amongst this generation. If you look at the media, if they watch any kind of television whatsoever, unless you have been watching strictly Christian television, you see a complete dissolving of the family system in marriage. And technology, because how individualized it is, it also pushes them further away. The other problem is this is a hypersexualized generation. All right? It is extremely traumatic, and I don't think a lot of people realize this. It is extremely traumatic for a child before the age of puberty to be exposed to pornography. Yet through the internet and technology, I have kids in my office all the time. A friend on their phone, look at that, boom, right there, exposed. 8 years old, 7 years old, 6 years old, 9 years old. They don't forget that, and that does affect them. After they go through puberty, that event becomes sexualized. In a hypersexualized generation, they're going to be acting out sexually, again, digitally, online, sending text, inappropriate. They call it sexting. I'm sure you've heard of that in the media. People get in trouble with that. Skype, all these versions where they feel more, it's more objectified sexually, and it's more anonymous. And so, versus having healthy relationships and commitment that leads to marriage, they're more hypersexualized, as you can see in the media as well, and are less likely to marry. My wife and I were the only Christians in a huge agency in downtown Denver. And they always gave us such a hard time. And we'd go hang out with them. We viewed it as a ministry to all those that were there. They all knew we were Christians. I was going to Denver Seminary at the time. I mean, you can't get around that. Thought I was training to be a priest. I was actually there, or a pastor. I was actually there for my counseling degree. But they were shocked that we did not live together before we got married. They thought that we were crazy for not living together, because we were the only ones there that didn't live together before we got married. And that is the standard and those are Generation X millennials, and they're viewing iGeneration to be far less likely to actually get married and appreciate the institution of marriage. And it's not just because of the modern day divorce rate by any means. All right, this is a real big one here. Large sense of entitlement. Because they are so used to instant gratification through technology. And because of what is seen, if you watch, like even if you just watch Disney Channel, and you watch the entitlement that is put out there through that, the children expect their parents to do everything for them, and parents have to earn the right to discipline them. I have children all the time in my office. Who are my parents to tell me what to do? They haven't earned that. They don't deserve that. And it's a respect issue in part, but they feel very entitled. At PBA, we joked about helicopter parents, where parents would come in and they do everything for their children. They don't want them to fail. Don't let them fail. They got to succeed at everything. I mean, you look at pre-K4 programs, and it's intense, man. It starts at a young age. Like when I was in preschool, I was just like breaking things, and we didn't have that. But it's just this sense of entitlement, and everything is done for them. That they have a lot of incapability. We had kids at PBA when they would write papers, and as freshmen, 17, 18-year-olds, they were using text language in their papers. College-level papers, they were using text language. And so there's this huge sense of entitlement, and we see it all the time in the counseling room. And it's hard to break through as parents, and we're going to talk about how to do that. And this is the final one in terms of defining the iGeneration. Then we're going to talk about how to parent the iGeneration. And there's increased mental health needs, including anxiety and depression. I saw that just in a few years at PBA. I mean, just going up and up and up and up and up. And this makes complete sense, because relationship and emotional expression is becoming far less and less face-to-face, and it's more through text. I've had many young men and women in my office that their whole relationship with their boyfriends or girlfriends is through text. They don't even talk but maybe once a week. All right? And as a result, there's more isolation and less community. And community is often where we find healing in anxiety and depression and most of our issues in life. It's the whole idea of the church is community. We have these online communities, and I have 2,000 friends on Facebook, and But that's not community. That's not community. So there's increased mental health needs. You got children at younger ages, depression, anxiety, legitimately. Yes, sir. Oh, yeah. You see that all the time. I actually love watching for that. And it's sad, but it's very true. I'll have many parents that talk about instead of even asking their kids to do something else, they text it to them. And they're in the home together. Because I'm upstairs and they're downstairs. It's just more convenient and it's faster, right? And so you just text it to your child. So that is very common. And so has increased mental health needs. All right. Any questions on just the overall definition? We're going to play all this out and how to parent and work with them. We're going to come back to these things. Make it practical for you guys on how to parent and work with children. But any questions just on that content there? I think I got everything in your notes, right? I kind of fly through PowerPoints, so that's why I put it all in the notes to make sure I don't miss anything. You got it? Okay. So what role can you play? This is what matters most, all right? We're going to make it as applicable and practical as possible. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time tonight, right? So we want you to go home with something that you can actually do and is effective. Everything that I talk about here is stuff that we work on in our counseling with parents and that we have seen to be effective. Otherwise, we wouldn't be telling you. And it's stuff that my wife and I all do as well. We like to practice what we preach. I think that's kind of important, right? All right, so authority and influence. When your children were born, if you imagine, let me see if I can remember math right here. I think this is a y-axis and this is an x-axis. I don't know if there are any math teachers in here. But on the y-axis here, at the top you've got authority. At the bottom you've got influence. All right? Top you've got authority. Bottom you've got influence. And over a child's lifetime, you got 0 to 18 years. When a child is born, you have, imagine a dot right here. That you have 0 influence in their life, but absolute authority. All right? So influence down here, authority up here. Absolute authority. I mean, you have an infant, right? You have absolute authority in that infant's life. You have 0 influence because they're not conscious to give you influence. Well, they're conscious, but not like a 14-year-old would be, right? So as a child gets older, you lose authority because they become more independent. But if you are doing the things you need to be doing as a parent in their life and investing in them the ways you need to be and challenging them in the ways you need to be, then you will be growing in your influence. That's something that they allow. I give someone influence in my life. Authority is forced on me, right? So if you do that, where those two lines meet is actually 9 years old. So I don't know if that's like some magic age. I don't have a 9-year-old yet. But I work with 9-year-olds, but you have kind of that mix of authority and influence in their life. But what we want to talk about is using authority, but the focus needs to be influence. Because when you discipline your children, if their motivation is avoidance of punishment, then that's the wrong kind of long-term discipline, right? You want to build and instill in your children a conviction for the things you're disciplining for. Otherwise, when they go to college, they're going to be smoking pot. They're going to be doing all those things that you may be disciplining them for. They're going to be doing those things if it's just a pure exercise of authority. So what we're going to be talking about in these things is how to have influence in your children so that they take on integrity, your character qualities. We don't have this much anymore, but the idea of apprenticeship used to be huge. All right, that's how you earned a living. That's how you found a trade, is you apprenticed under someone. And an apprentice did not just take on the trade of the person that they were under, but they took on the character and the nature of that person as well. And so your children, they're apprenticed under you, that they would take on your character and your nature and your conviction. So it's not just an exercise of authority, although you do have to use your authority, and you do have authority, and you do need to use it. We're going to talk about ways to increase influence so that they have that conviction themselves. Versus, I just don't want to get in trouble, so I'm going to do what mom and dad tell me to do. All right, so what role can you play? Authority and influence, focusing on influence. Second here, I'll just put them all out there. We'll go down them. Spend quantity and quality time with them. This is how you build influence. If you don't spend quantity and quality time with your children, then it's hard for them to take on the nature and character of you. You look at Christ and his disciples. He spent every day, all day, for 3 solid years with them before he said, okay, now I think you're ready. You go build my church. Right? Every day, all day, for 3 solid years. And they were watching and watching and watching and learning. I encourage parents that, now if you have like 10 or 15 kids, this is going to be difficult, but and some have a lot of children, some have few, but I think you can work it out. Some works with what works for you guys and your family. But my wife and I take my daughter out twice a month for breakfast, and my son out twice a month. Now for him, he's 18 months, so it's really not going out to breakfast. It's just let's hang out and run around the yard. But my wife does the same because I want that quality, concentrated time, but also as much quantity time as I can have with them, so that they would take on my character and my nature, but also so that when the tough times come, they feel comfortable coming to me and talking to me. And they know that I'm going to be there, that I'm present, that I have the time, and that I'm available. The most precious moment during the day is right when they lay down to go to sleep. I'm sure you guys probably already know that. You want to get something out of your kids? Kneel at the side of their bed. They taught us. I used to be a camp counselor at Kanakuk camps. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're a big sports camp up in Missouri, Branson, Missouri. And that's one thing they taught us is, these campers, a lot of them came from broken homes, difficult situations, and they would just open up at that bedtime. We'd sit at the end of their bunk, sit on the side, sit on the floor, and they would just talk and talk and talk. Not right away, but we just sit there, and they would open up. So that time allows you to have influence. That has nothing to do with authority. Spending time with your children. That's all influence. And it's very, very, very important. And it never tires of being important, no matter how old they get. You pursue. It is always your job to pursue your children. It is never your children's job to pursue you. Again, no matter how old they get. I don't care if they're 20, 30, 40 years old. It is always your job to pursue your children. And so time. All right. This next point's a real big one, and it's be aware of their media use. And we're going to camp out on this one for a little bit. It's difficult the older you get, in many ways, to keep up with the changing developments in technology and times. Music alone. I mean, if you just look at that, I'm 30 years old, and I already feel totally disconnected from the modern music today. I never thought I would say that because that's all I used to listen to in high school, but I always have kids when they come in, I have them play some music that they have on their phone. Well, let me hear what you're listening to. I'm like, who is that? What is that? I have no idea. So you got to keep awareness of what they're listening to, what they're watching. Listen to what they're listening to. You sit with them and say, hey, let's spend an hour and listen to what you listen to. If they don't want to do that, there's a problem. Let's spend an hour and watch what you're watching. Let's spend an hour and play what you're playing. Whatever social media that they are on, you better have an account for yourself. And be on it as well, and be aware. It is ever-changing. And children are highly advanced in their ability to hide it, to deceive you with it. I had a young boy in last week, and he was telling about how his sisters got their parents' old iPhone 4 or something or others. Okay, they're not activated, so the parents think it's no big deal. They can just listen to music on it. They're Wi-Fi capable, and the son knew the password, so he gave it to the two girls. They're like 8 and 10 years old, and they're downloading texting apps, and they're texting, and they're on Tumblr, and they're on Instagram, and boom, 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 boom. Parents have no idea. They are not aware. I've had many, many kids that had boyfriends and or girlfriends for up to a year plus their parents were never aware of. Because parents, again, were not seeking to be aware. If they had just one time looked at their cell phone bill and seen how many texts were going off between 11 and 1 o'clock in the morning, and or got on their children's computer just once and logged into Facebook or anything else, it would have saved a lot of heartache, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering for those kids and those parents. So it is extremely, extremely important for you to be aware. You have to stay up on technology. Oh, yes, go ahead. What's Tumblr? Okay. Tumblr is like a blog. Tumblr is like a blog, and it's very, very popular, especially with tweens, preteens and teens. And it's like they get everything out. They have their emotions. They have pictures on there. It's a way of expressing their identity. All right. No, it's different than Instagram. It's different than Instagram. Look. Right. It's like a MySpace, Facebook, more of like that. Where Instagram is more of a subsection of like, it's like Twitter is for your status update for Facebook, and Instagram is more like the picture side of that with a statement to it. Tumblr is more of this It is kind of more like a MySpace or some of those older things. But just, yeah, it's like a diary. That's a good way of putting it. It's like a public diary. And so there's just amazing what's on there. Yeah. Yeah, I think transparency is really important. So, the less you hide from your children, the better. Yeah.
Can you repeat the question for the...
Sure. The question was, should you take your children's technology and look at it, whether it be an iPhone, iPad, computer, and if you do, should you share that with them that you're doing that? And I say, yes, you should do that, and yes, you should share that with them. It's very unlikely that any of your children bought these things for themselves or own them for that matter. And even if they did, I would still be saying the same thing. But you have every right to have their passwords to everything. You should. You should be looking at it. It's fine to take it. Just tell them that you're doing it. I'm checking your cell phone minutes. I'm checking your text. I'm checking your Facebook. I'm your Facebook friend. Because there's nothing they should be hiding. If they have something they want to say to each other they don't want you to see, then they can tell each other the old-fashioned way, right? But they don't want to do that because that's too personal. They're scared to say it that way, so they want to do it that way. Yes, sir. Right. So the question was, they get upset with their privacy being invaded. And that goes back to the entitlement issues. Who are you to know about me and my life? Well, you're not invading their privacy because you're not actually saying, I'm going to put a wiretap on you and I'm going to listen to every conversation that you have. You're saying, because listen, Facebook, Tumblr, Instagram, you can get to porn through all of those like that. No problem. Parents are usually not aware of that. Instagram, all of them. You can have all these great filters on, they're on it. And parents are constantly shocked at what their children are doing. Now, obviously, you have to have a system of trust with your children, so they do, over time, gain some privacy because you've seen those character qualities develop in them, and you have that influence. So, yeah, that's a privilege. But they have to also understand that at any point, you can look at that. Now, if we're talking about a 17-year-old versus a 14 or 13-year-old, that's a little bit different conversation because you're going to have to, you're going to have to allow them to begin to go to the 18, 19, 20-year-old college age. It's just a whole different ballgame. When I'm working with a 17-year-old versus a 14-year-old, it's a whole different process with the parent, depending on the level of influence they have in their life. Yes, sir.
We're talking about their sense of wanting to be private from their parents. But yet they're not private at all online. They have a
Right.
sense of anonymity and total freedom to sex, to do whatever they want to do.
And the interesting thing is, and I don't think that they realize that. The first thing we did at PBA, because I was on some hiring committees as well as choosing some students for things, and first thing we ever did is we would look at their Facebook accounts. And I can't tell you how many people did not get hired because of their Facebook accounts, and I can't tell you how many kids got in trouble because of their Facebook accounts. This is just the number one thing we always look at. Boom, right away. Before I got hired there, they were on my Facebook, and they were talking about it. I was like, that creeps me out. How did they get on there? I thought I had that locked down. You can't get in there. Well, you can get in there. All right? And so that sense of privacy is important, but they're not entitled to that. All right? Unless they've earned that through consistent positive behavior. Then they've earned that. All right? We have to get so extreme with some of these kids that my wife worked with that were adjudicated that they lost the door to their room. They didn't deserve even that level of privacy because they could not be trusted. That had to be earned. Because that's a privilege, right? When you spend time in a third world country, a door is a privilege. A phone is a privilege. A computer is a privilege. It has to be earned. It's not a right. They're not entitled to it. And I think that's important. That's going to be a point we're going to make here, is that they've grown up entitled to those things because they've not had suffering. Most of the children in this generation, in this country, don't know what persecution and suffering is. They have no idea what that is. Who are you to look at my stuff? Well, who are you to have all these things here? They don't understand that. But when you point that out, it softens them a little bit. They get that. They're more receptive to you. And then they earn that privacy, which they obviously need and have to have some individuation there. So if you don't have that awareness, then it's very hard to have that influence in their life. And I have a lot of parents going, man, I thought my daughter was just this perfect little angel, da-da-da-da. Then I got this call. And they come in bawling. and shocked. Okay? So, your children may be very innocent now, but it takes, like I said, a friend going like this. Hey, check this out. That's it. And I've heard that so many times, to open their eyes and their hearts and their minds to a whole different world. And so you have to have that awareness and understand those things. All right, so the next point here, we can pull that up. I don't know if it went back. I think it jumped ahead. Is decrease media. There it is. Decrease media use as a family. And this is one that in my office parents usually have the hardest time with. Right? Because we like our media too, right? In fact, I often have kids complain more about their parents than their parents about them. My mom won't get off Pinterest and Facebook. It's like I just want to talk to her. Pinterest is an addiction of my wife. She'll admit it. I think it's fun to watch. It makes me hungry every time I look at that website. But you guys know what Pinterest is? Yeah. Okay. What's that? Pinterest? No, it's like a place for ideas, basically, and you pin things that you like, and it's this real cool thing that's out now. But when I was, when we first moved down here, about 6 months to a year into first moving down here, we were a part of a marriage group that worked with Chick-fil-A and the Kathy family. And we were at a meeting. We were doing this initiative in the Chick-fil-A's called Spice Up Your Marriage, is what it was called a few years ago. And the Kathys, Dan and Bubba, came down, and they met with a small group of us, and they were talking about this, because they're huge on this in media and influence. And they said, we're going to give you all a challenge for your families. The family unit is the most important thing in the United States of America and the world, right? As go families, so go communities and churches. As go communities and churches, so go cities. As go cities, so go states. As go states, so go nations. As go nations, so go entire civilizations. It all comes back to the family. All right? And so they said, we want you guys to go a whole month with no television at all for up to 6 months. And for every month you go, we'll give you $1,000 to any ministry that you want. All right? Any nonprofit ministry, we'll give $1,000, up to $6,000. So we thought. So for two of us, it'd be great. Let's do that. So we did. We're gonna go no TV. So we got rid of the TV. Now they said you could watch like one DVD a week as a family event thing. So we're like, okay. This was football season. My wife's a huge Gators fan. My wife's more of a fan of football than I am. Even she's a huge fan. I like it. She loves it. No problem. We'll go without it. 6 months without television. And it was amazing. Absolutely amazing. To this day, we still don't have television in our home because we loved it so much. That was years and years and years ago. Don't miss it. Don't miss it. And it has allowed so much more time as a couple and so much more time with our children. All right? So you have to be aware of the appropriateness of decreasing media and your family. Parents will always ask me, what age should I get them this or that? And I say, well, if it has anything to do with apps, applications, smartphones, iPads, any of that kind of stuff, not until they're 16 years old. Because any child under that age that I've seen using that stuff, it's a negative. Right. All the kids do it. Now, here's the thing. So that is it is helpful in terms of connecting them, but what you got to consider is it's entertainment, right? So if you are going to give it to them at a younger age, it needs to be viewed as entertainment versus communication. And again, you got to be really careful what you give them because what they can access through it. This just show you practice what I preach. This is my phone. It's text only, right? And I work with a lot of men that struggle with pornography and sexual addiction. So I have this phone so I can show them. Because I say, you guys, you got to get rid of your iPhones. You got to get rid of your smartphones because you will look at pornography on those things. It's just too easy. You can download an app, look at it, delete it. Your wife will never know. Well, kids can do the same thing, right? They can send pictures themselves, whatever else. They can hide it on these secret coded things on here that you can't even get access to unless you have like a 30-digit code to get into it. And they can hide it to do whatever they want. You can't do that on this thing, but I can still text. I can still call. It has the functionality, right? And it is cool to have the little GPS devices because you can see wherever they're at, and there's some advantages to that. But you have to be willing, and again, it has to work with your family and where you guys are at because you can't just cross the board and say, okay, we're doing all this. That's not going to work. All right, so you have to customize it to where you are at with your family. But you have to be willing to, in some way, shape, or form, decrease media use in order to increase relational, emotional connection. If you guys notice the definitions of the iGeneration These are not my definitions. These are ones that are done through research. How many of them were positive? There weren't. I kept looking for them. I was like, I don't want to depress everybody. But there weren't a lot of them. Because the majority of the influence of technology in terms of relational, emotional, has actually been shown to be a negative versus a positive. It's great for business, right? Facebook is great for business. Social networking is great for business. You know what I mean? It's great for entertainment. It's great for spreading ideas. You look at the way Facebook has changed the world. It's amazing. So there are some great positives to it. But for a family and for a child, you've got to really be willing to decrease those things. And trust me, they will not get behind technologically. I handed my daughter an iPad that we had just gotten like a year or so ago. And she's navigating that thing within like 30 minutes better than I am. And she's never had any of that kind of stuff. It's scary. It's amazing. She gets on my phone and she's able to figure stuff out. I'm like, how did you do that? I didn't even know that was on there. She's not even 5 years old. They're like sponges for this stuff, and they're able to advance in that very quickly. So you're not going to hold them behind. All right. So now we're going to come back to those first 2 points and how they apply here. If I can get that to go. There we go. Use unconditional love and discipline. So going back to kind of some of those entitlement issues, and when your children are coming against you, like, this is not fair, this doesn't make sense, that they know that when they come to you, that they will be loved no matter what, but that if they come against your authority, as a parent, because you have authority, you still do at this point. I have kids say all the time, who are my parents? I'm like, dude, like, did you pay for those shoes right there? Did you pay for those clothes? Yeah, I did. Okay, well, how your whole wardrobe, how did you pay for? Okay, none of it. All right, how about the roof over your head? How about the food on your table? See, you have that authority, and they understand, though, that you will exercise that if needed. That's discipline, and you will teach them, and you will guide them. So you still have to use that. And if you aren't going back to that other point on time, and you're not having that time spent, then they're going to resent you for that. They will say, who are you to have influence in my life, or to exercise authority or discipline in my life? Because you're not in my life to the degree that I need you to be, even though it seems like they don't want you in your life. Based on how they might interact with you. They do. They do want you in your life. They do. They crave this. When I was in high school, my parents were like the cool parents, and my friends' parents were the cool parents. My friends' parents threw parties. We went and drank. I was definitely not living the Christian life for quite a while until my early 20s. And I thought my parents were so cool because we didn't have a curfew. And we could do whatever we wanted. We got in a lot of trouble. We got in trouble with the police sometimes. And we got out of it. Parents got us out of it sometimes even. All right? I thought that was really cool at that age. Then I got in my early 20s, and you know what I felt? Felt unloved by that. Ironically, right? Man. Boy, I could have been making a lot better choices in my life at this point if I had had that discipline and that unconditional love, even in those tough times. All right? Felt very unloved by that. And a lot of kids do. I have a lot of kids in their early 20s that will say the same stuff to me about that. And then the second one is be consistent. That's the second main overarching core parenting essentials. Be consistent. Just an easy trick that I often tell parents with this is, when it comes to being consistent with discipline, it's just to sit down with your child, whether they're 3 years old or 13 years old, and list out all the negative behaviors that they might do. All right? Just the major ones. Then list out all the consequences that you might give them for those. And this generation in particular really is not highly affected by long-term consequences. Like if you say you're grounded for a month, like after 2 days, they don't care. Or I'm taking your phone away for a week, after 2 days, they don't care. All right? So you want to make consequences, especially for this generation, 24 hours. So that they have an opportunity to earn it back within 24 hours. That way they're always held accountable. They hold themselves accountable to earning those opportunities back. So, hey, you know what? You did this. Check. Boom. You did this negative behavior today. Boom. Here's your consequence. 24 hours from now, you have the opportunity to not do these behaviors and earn this consequence back. On the backside of that, you also have a reward system for them that you can develop for consistently not having check marks and having good days, and they have a reward. So in addition to being in control of earning things back, so they have self-responsibility, they're also in control of having privileges. We call it the one-day trick. it's highly effective, and it's a lot easier for parents too, because they don't have to say, well, I got to think of something. It's just boom, boom. There you go, 24 hours, just like that. And that's a great point. We're about to get to that point, because I have a lot of children that will tell their parents, this is manipulation, that I hate you. I hate you. You're taking away my privacy. You're ruining my friendships and my social life. There's this movie called Dan in Real Life. And his daughter in the movie, he loses his wife, and he's got 3 daughters. And the one is, she's like probably 15 or 16, and he's keeping her from this boyfriend who's been sneaking out. And she goes, you're a killer of love. You're a hater of love. I hate you. And he goes, you just don't get it. But you will. And your 14-year-old will. And they will say that. I have to tell kids all the time, this is love. This is what love looks like. This is your parents loving you. You will not understand that till you're a little bit older. You just won't, because your world is consumed here. But you will someday. You'll remember me saying this. And I have people come back and say, hey, I remember you saying that. Imagine that. It's usually not too much longer after that, when they get a taste of real life. All right, so you need to be consistent in praising consequences, the one-day trick. Now, for more extreme behaviors, you got to do different things than that. But for the day-to-day, typical kind of consequences and discipline, that can be highly effective. Again, this generation, I got grounded for 2 months. It just doesn't really work with them, because they are so connected. So they can find their ways to connect, right? Whereas before, like, you had the home phone, just the home phone. And it was on lockdown, and they were shut off from the world. So it just doesn't work that way anymore. So you have to have more short-term, effective consequences. All right, here's a big, big, big one. Manipulation. Do not get manipulated. My goodness. I wish I could record my sessions sometimes and play them to parents, but obviously confidentiality doesn't allow for that. I'll have them tell me, whether they're 12, 13, 15, 17, my parents, they're not going to last on this consequence. I'll talk them out of it eventually. I can get them to do whatever I want. I hear that all the time. All the time. And they throw these fits. I hate you. Who are you? And then it gets worse than that. I have kids cuss out their parents all the time. It's all manipulation, though. When I talk to them about it, they'll tell me I'm doing that on purpose. I'm manipulating them. They won't use that word. But it comes from a sense of entitlement. And so don't get manipulated. The biggest one is, if you see on your notes or on the screen that was there, but everyone else is doing it. Everyone else has all this stuff. All my friends, they're all doing it. First off, it's probably not entirely true. And even if it is, who cares? All right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's like a cheap manipulation trick. I mean, you wouldn't fall for that if the whole if everyone was running off a bridge thing, you wouldn't, But it can be highly effective, because you don't want to feel like one of those parents. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to feel that way, but your children can make you feel that way. But you got to understand, you got to constantly ask yourself, what does love look like? Because love is not convenient or easy, especially as a parent. But how do I love my children best in this situation? And it is hard. And it's not always black and white. Right? It's subjective at times. But if you constantly ask yourself that question before you make a decision, I guarantee you're going to be making better decisions. Especially if you ask God that question. God, what does love look like right here? Setting boundaries with them. My wife was not allowed to date till she was 16. I think society today would call that child abuse or something like that. She's very well adjusted, very healthy. All right? And neither were her sisters. And their relationships looked a lot better after that. That's not abusive. It's not abusive to tell your kids, I'm sorry, you can't have an iPhone till you're 16. Go live in Haiti for 3 months and see if you care about an iPhone. All right? So Do not get manipulated. They're so good at that. And they know they're doing it. I'll just play videos for you. You'll go, oh my gosh, it'll make you angry. Yes, sir. Yeah, bring it to marriage, yeah. Yeah. That'll work, right? Yeah. Works to a point. And then that's where things get difficult, right? Is they will push you. And they will seek to say, hey, you know what? This is not fair. I hate you. You don't love me. You don't care about me. You're mean. You're this. You're that. It's like, look at your heart and say, this is how I love my child. He's 10, yeah. They want to start those relationships really early. Yes. Oh yeah, she was saying that. They have a child who's 10 years old, and they're already talking about having a boyfriend and girlfriend, and I'm wondering why they can't do that at that age. And again, that's just what they see all around. I mean, you see what their version of love is not what love is. It's infatuation. That's what the media puts out there, what music puts out there. That's not love. It's just infatuation. But that's what love has become, and so they try to integrate that at younger and younger ages. Oh, I wouldn't. Yeah, if I have a son, I'm not going to let him date till he's 16 either. And it doesn't matter if male or female. They're just not emotionally. I've never met a 15-year-old that's emotionally developed enough to understand love and relationships, let alone commitment. I never have. I've worked with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, as has my wife. So that's just what we've seen, and that's what we do with our children. Right. And you can't stop that. Well, you can't necessarily prevent it. You can't prevent the storm. They will be exposed. And my daughter, we keep her on tight lockdown, but she's still, she's got a cousin who, is showing her these music videos when we're not watching. And it's like she comes in asking these questions about this Flow Rider and, these girls in bikinis and what's SHIT, and she's like, oh, you know what I mean? But she's coming to us and asking about it. And she wants to know what I have to say about it. And she gives great power to what I have to say. When I say, that's wrong, and she goes right back to her cousin and says, that's wrong, and you need to delete that from you. Because she's taken on our character. It is a long process. They absorb over time. So if you're pouring into them now with those things, in addition to setting boundaries are still highly effective. You can't keep everything out, but you can keep a lot of things, where they have a healthy understanding of healthy boundaries. And they will take that with them. Yes. Right. And if you have, right, and so she was saying that, that there's exposure. It was your daughter, you said, that was exposed to what sex is, and that she's able to kind of correct that. And that's the thing, is that if your children feel safe with you, and they feel that they can trust you and they know you, that they're going to come to you with these things, and then you have the ability to have influence in their lives. That's where it comes back to influence. That's something they allow, because a lot of kids might not go to their parents with that because they feel like they're going to get in trouble for hearing that, or their parents are going to get mad at them, or whatever else the case may be. You can't shelter your kids, and you don't want to eliminate all technology, because that's not good either. And they are going to be exposed to these things. But as long as you have an open dialogue with your children constantly, and they give more power to what you say because of years and years and years of pouring into them in these ways, then you're going to be able to kind of hold that tide to a certain degree. But eventually, yes, you are going to have to cast them out into the world. That's the whole image of that arrow. You don't keep an arrow just to here the whole time. You pull back and let it loose, right? And they got to go out there. And if it's a fear of punishment or being sheltered, that's keeping them honest, and that's not going to work. But if they have their own convictions that they developed over, decade and a half with you, then that will work, and that is effective. What do we got up there? See, don't get manipulated. Children will wear you down, and the number one reason why parents give in to things is because they're tired. You're just tired, man. I'm telling you what. My kids can wear me out, and it's just I become someone I'm not. And you're just more like, I'm just fine. Just take the iPad because it's a great babysitter. Just go. You know what I mean? It's just easy, right? It's easy. And so they wear you down. They know they can get you tired. You have to constantly be refreshing yourself. You got to take time. My wife and I we don't get away twice a year, just the two of us for an extended period of time, like, it's not good. It's not going to be good for our marriage. It's not going to be good for our children. If we don't have a date, at least twice a month, preferably once a week, again, that's not going to be good. Because our children, you will get worn down. You will be tired. All right. Get them outside of themselves. See if we can get that to come up here. Get them outside of themselves. Okay. It's not just the iGeneration because of iPod, iPad. It's the iGeneration because everything is individualized to me. And that's a big reason why there's increased depression and anxiety. Because in depression and anxiety, when we do work with people who are depressed and anxious, you know what we often do? Try to get them outside of themselves. We get them to go serve. Because when you're internalizing things all the time, you're going to be more depressed and more anxious. But when you get the bigger picture of I can help other people, then you get outside of yourself. I think what changed my life more than anything else is my parents made me, against my will, with great anger and manipulation. It didn't work with them this time. They sent me to the Philippines for most of the summer when I was 17 years old with Youth with a Mission. Way out in the mountains in pure poverty. And it completely transformed the way I saw myself and the world and God. And not feel entitled to anything anymore. I remember coming back, the first thing I saw was a little kid fighting with his mom about she got the wrong McDonald's Happy Meal toy. And I cried. I couldn't even understand. I was like, that's me. All right? You've got to expose your children to this. I had a young man I worked with who smoked pot. He'd cuss his children out. They sent him to military school. They did all these things. He was 17. Like, oh, he's beyond hope. He's 17. You know, let's just get him through high school. Just get him out of here. I said, send him to YWAM. Send him someplace. They sent him to Mexico City for a whole summer. And about halfway through, I was getting YouTube videos from them of him, like, it didn't even look like him anymore. It was amazing because he was serving, giving of himself. He got outside of himself, and it totally transformed him. You've got to find ways to get them outside of themselves. And that would be hard when they're younger. And to be honest, in Palm Beach County, there's not a ton of those kind of opportunities like there were like in Denver, where I'm from, or from Los Angeles, where I spent time in school. But they are here. There are some. And we've got Haiti and Dominican just a hop, skip, and a jumping away, and there's plenty there. Trust me. Belle Glade, they can go out west. Man, if you've ever been to Belle Glade, even Clewiston, some of those areas, you know, there's a soup kitchen that Christ Fellowship has. There's Place of Hope. There's Urban Youth Impact off Australian. You know, there's a huge urban population here that there's tons of need in. All right, so it's find ways to get them outside of themselves so that greatly decreases entitlement. Right? I came back and I didn't feel entitled to any McDonald's, anything. I was just glad to have a bathroom. You know what I mean? And it puts it all into perspective, right? All right. And this second to last one here is a real tough one as parents because I don't ever want to see my children do this, but you got to let them fail. Sometimes they have to fail. You can't rescue them, right? They got to skin their knee. They got to not pass that class. They might have to get held back. They might, whatever it may be, depending on age appropriateness. But sometimes you have to let them fail. We all know that we learn most from our failures, right? That's what I've learned most from my failure. When God allows me to suffer, I've actually had a lot of suffering in my life. A lot of suffering. A lot of pain has happened. A lot of things God has allowed that I could be like, why God? But I'm like, you love me. And I'm learning from that. And so He lets me fail. I got to let my children fail too. Because they will learn and then they will come. That's a teaching moment right there. That's a teaching moment. So sometimes you got to let them fail. And that's okay. Now, as parents, we have a fear of failure, so when our children fail, we feel like we failed. And we didn't fail. You fail if you don't handle that as a learning opportunity, then you fail because you failed that opportunity right there. You lost out on that opportunity. But it's a great learning opportunity when they fail. All right, finally, this right here, cultivate an eternal mindset. That right there will carry them through anything that they happen to be exposed to, whether you are in control over it or not. And learning how to parent the iGeneration is not just about keeping your children from being exposed to things. That it's about practicing healthy relationship as well, real relationship, not just constant entertainment and distraction, right? And you can't be still and know that I'm God. You guys know that scripture? Okay, wow, it's really hard to be still in this day and age, right? And so that's what you're teaching them as well, is to learn how to be still, be quiet. Second biggest thing that transformed me in my life was a guy named J.P. Moreland, who was an apologetics professor, genius, philosophy guy at Biola University and at Talbot, the School of Theology. And he's at a chapel. He said, I challenge you guys that from now on, whenever you're in a car, just turn the music off. And in Los Angeles, that's extremely painful, by the way, because you can be on a 20-minute drive that takes 2 hours. You're going 5 miles an hour. You get flipped off left and right, and it's terrible. It's like 10 lanes of traffic. And the last thing you want is just silence. I've done that since. I rode here, no music. I'll ride away from here, no music, because I want to find ways of being still and getting that out of my mind so that I can have an eternal mindset. I can plug back into God. He's my source. He's my encourager. That's why I love being a parent, because it makes me so dependent on God. The attributes of love in 1 Corinthians 13. The first attribute of love is what? Love is patient. It's like, all right, I got 2 little guys right there. They're going to teach me that attribute real quick. Right? Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. Right? So, cultivating an internal mindset, you use those as opportunities to bring them back to God. When they come in and say, hey, I saw this. I heard this. Someone showed me this. I found this. It's like, okay, great. Here's a teaching opportunity. Here's a way to bring it back to God. I'm just constantly doing that. All right? So that they're constantly seeing Christ's image reflected in me as a parent. And that's the greatest thing about being a parent. That's why it's your number one. It's one of your number one ministries in your life. Second to your marriage. It's got to come after your marriage. Marriage has got to be number 1. Parenting number 2. Everything else after that. Because those are the greatest influences that we have in our lives. So let them fail, and then cultivate an eternal mindset. So, here's how this works. So now what? We're going to do a little math here. I loved math in high school and college. I went on to be a counselor, so we don't have a lot of math in what we do unless you're on the research end. But I do like it, and so I put this together. Information plus inspiration minus application equals frustration. Information plus inspiration plus application equals transformation. So, how many of you remember what classes you took as a senior in high school? Yeah, some of you? I remember physics. I remember that one class. But other than that, I don't remember many of them, let alone what I learned. Because a lot of it was a long time ago, right? And I was 17, and I was getting ready to go to California, and all I cared about was girls and the new car I just got. You know what I mean? I didn't make it applicable. I did not choose to make what I was learning applicable, so I've forgotten it now. Now, I could have made it applicable, and I could still remember what I took then. I don't. You don't want that to be the case tonight, because what we're learning tonight can greatly impact your children. I get to see it every single week. I get to see it every single week. Change, transformation, healing. So my challenge to you is this, based on that point, this last point here. I want you guys to write down on your notes what is at least one thing that for the next 30 days you'll work on doing as a result of being here today. If you're with your spouse, it could be something different than what they write down, but I want you to choose one thing that you independently will do differently with your children, just one thing, and see how it works. Because if you do just one thing differently, that's success. All right? That makes this time worth it. If you guys don't put into practice anything that we talked about tonight within the next 7 days, it'll be gone. You'll lose it. Again, studies have shown that with any kind of focused group workshop, that if you don't put it into practice in 7 days, most likely you're going to lose it. So my challenge is just choose one thing the next 30 days and put it into practice. There's plenty of things here that you can do. I don't suggest you all just go 6 months without television and get rid of all your technology. That's probably not going to be successful right off the bat or beneficial. But there are some things that you can begin to integrate to increase influence in your children's life. Still exercise the authority that you do have. Being consistent in all your ways, that you're an anchor for your child, and showing them unconditional love. Remember to ask yourself that question. What does love look like? Because it doesn't always look the same depending on the scenario, right? And just because your children it feels like hate, right, doesn't mean that it is. They can think it's hate, but it really is love. That's what love looks like, okay? All right. So, now I'd like to turn it over to you guys. Many of you have already asked a lot of great questions and had a lot of great comments. I really appreciate that. I'd like to see if any of you guys have any questions, and after that, I'm going to be here for a while, and you can come up and talk to me individually if you prefer to ask questions that way. But and all the content we went over, just any parenting questions in general, I'll be glad to answer. Anyone have any questions or comments? Yes. Right. Well, the question was, what's a good age to get them outside of themselves, get them serving, going into their country? I think the youngest age possible. I mean, I'm starting right now. I have a 4.5-year-old, and we already have her giving money, like tithing. She's getting a concept of that, as well as serving the poor. My wife, when she was very young as well, her parents, Clematis, or not Clematis Street, but just south of there were City Places. The Harriet Hema Hotel used to be a crack house, and that whole neighborhood there was terrible. My father-in-law would take his 3 daughters and his wife every Sunday morning, and he'd feed the poor there. And they grew up doing that every Sunday morning. You could just go around and get free food from a lot of the grocery stores and places like that, and you just go and you'd feed the poor. And they ran all the homeless there, and now you've got City Place, and you know what that is now. But to do things like that at the youngest age possible, my wife still remembers that and has a great impact on her. And she went on in high school. She went to Palm Beach Lakes High School. All right, yeah, I heard a wow out there. Yeah, okay, some of you know about Lakes. She still holds the record for most. I'm actually bragging on her, but she still holds the record for most service hours at that school, thousands upon thousands, because that was instilled at her at a young age, just to serve and to give. And she's been on mission trips all over the place. So I think it's never too young. You can start them out small, but just some parents take their kids to the soup kitchen, things like that, and they're like, wow, I want to give to these kids. The great thing is to have them sponsor a World Vision child, something like that. They're writing letters to them. They know, like, hey, this child survives on $30 a month. Let me tell you what $30 a month is like for us. Yeah, so another good example in how she took to that, and it sounds like cross-cultural experience as well, somewhat. All right, any other questions, thoughts on what we went over this evening? Yes, ma'am. Dating, yeah. Not dating until you're going to get married. Joshua Harris put a book out called I Kiss Dating Goodbye, and I'm actually kind of negative on that book. I think it's great to date. I think it's important to date. I think it's but it just needs to be age appropriate. You know what I mean? And it needs to be defined. And the purpose of dating is to get to know somebody with the potential of marriage. Yeah. So another good example in how she took to that, and it sounds like cross-cultural experience as well, somewhat. All right, any other questions, thoughts on what we went over this evening? Yes, ma'am. Dating, yeah. Not dating until you're going to get married. Joshua Harris put a book out called I Kiss Dating Goodbye, and I'm actually kind of negative on that book. I think it's great to date. I think it's important to date. I think it's but it just needs to be age appropriate. You know what I mean? And it needs to be defined. And the purpose of dating is to get to know somebody with the potential of marriage. It's not just about infatuation and lust and all these kinds of things that you see about often in the media, but that I think it is important for them then to develop, starting 16, 17, 18, 19, years old, a healthy concept of what dating is. Otherwise, they do have an opportunity through dating later in life to learn more about themselves, about identity, about the opposite sex, about all those things. Especially, I grew up in a home of all boys. I didn't know anything about girls, really, because I didn't have any sisters. So especially, for children that don't have a sibling of the opposite sex, it's even more important for them to understand more about the opposite sex, to have some dating versus the big thing. Probably 10, 15 years ago, he wrote that book, I Kiss Dating Goodbye, and I'm not big on that whole courtship concept. I think that there's still a lot of room for dating. It's just not at 13 years old. Yes, ma'am. Okay, age to talk about sex. You want to do that when they're still at the age of innocence, and that's different for all kids. It's girls you got to talk with about earlier, because girls just develop earlier. But also, if they're exposed to it before you talk to them about it, then that's the age you talk to them about it, because they're exposed to it. But I would say pre-puberty, just before that, like for girls, sometimes even 10 years old, 11 years old, boys 11, 12, right around that age, what we call the age of innocence. If you go too early, it's just a little funky with them. They just don't quite understand that, and you don't quite have the impact or the influence. You can do that, but it's a little more effective. It's more about how you do it as well, that you take some real intentional time. I encourage the parent of the same sex to do that with their child, but also the parent of the opposite sex to talk with them some about it also, so that they get that perspective as well, and there's not this awkwardness there. Like my wife's going to be in charge of my daughter, for sure. Of course, I've gotten all the questions so far. she always happens to be not in the room when I get like, what are those and what's that? And she's got a younger brother. We're like, okay, no more bathtubs together, or at least with bubbles. She goes, I'll have to say this. She goes, what's that stripy thing? And I go, Amy, you come deal with this. I explained it to her, and you know what? That's fine. You don't want to hide things from her. Well, that's just da-da-da. You say, okay, that's what that is. You know? Right. Well, just even talking to them is huge. Like, I talked to a lot of people, like, where did you learn about sex? Most of them did not learn from their parents. So just having any kind of conversation with them is huge. But I think you got to meet them at age appropriateness. So pre-puberty, you're going to be pretty basic with them. Because for a lot of kids, it can be really shocking. All right? Then post-puberty, you need to continue to have conversations with them. Especially with young men. Now, young women struggle with this more and more as well, but young men with sexual attachment, pornography, things like that they will often need a sense of accountability. There's a lot of shame that goes along with that. And so a father, especially a man needs to have a real influence in their life with that. Not to say that young women don't do that as well, but again, it's far more prevalent with males. But yeah, you would start out, especially pre-puberty, very basic, you know, that this is how this works, this is how God created it. He created it to be pleasurable, He created it to be within a marriage. It's for the purpose of relationship and procreation, of making babies, basically. Even to as simple as this is just where babies come from. And that you can explain that. We're going to explain this later, or further later in life. Then you might get into issues of like pre-puberty, like masturbation and other things like that. Okay? It's not just about infatuation and lust and all these kinds of things that you see about often in the media, but that I think it is important for them then to develop, you know, starting 16, 17, 18, 19, you know, years old, a healthy concept of what dating is. Otherwise, they do have an opportunity through dating later in life to learn more about themselves, about identity, about the opposite sex, about all those things. You know, especially, I grew up in a home of all boys. I didn't know anything about girls, really, because I didn't have any sisters. So especially, you know, for children that don't have a sibling of the opposite sex, it's even more important for them to understand more about the opposite sex, to have some dating versus, you know, the big thing, probably 10, 15 years ago, he wrote that book, I Kissed Dating Goodbye, and I'm not big on that whole courtship concept. I think that there's still a lot of room for dating. It's just not at 13 years old, you know. Yes, ma'am. Okay, age to talk about sex. You know, you want to do that when they're still at the age of innocence, and that's different for all kids. It's girls you got to talk with about earlier, because girls just develop earlier. But also, you know, if they're exposed to it before you talk to them about it, then that's the age you talk to them about it, because they're exposed to it. But I would say pre-puberty, just before that, like for girls, sometimes even 10 years old, 11 years old, boys 11, 12, right around that age, what we call the age of innocence. You know, if you go too early, it's just a little funky with them. They just don't quite understand that, and you don't quite have the impact or the influence. You can do that, but it's a little more effective. It's more about how you do it as well, that you take some real intentional time. I encourage the parent of the same sex to do that with their child, but also the parent of the opposite sex to talk with them some about it also, so that they get that perspective as well, and there's not this awkwardness there. Like my wife's going to be in charge of my daughter, for sure. Of course, I've gotten all the questions so far. She always happens to be not in the room when I get like, what are those and what's that? And she's got a younger brother. We're like, okay, no more bathtubs together, or at least with bubbles. She goes, I'll have to say this. She goes, what's that stripy thing? And I go, Amy, you come deal with this. I explained it to her, and you know what? That's fine. You don't want to hide things from her. Well, that's just da-da-da. You say, okay, that's what that is. You know. Right. Well, just even talking to them is huge. Like, I talked to a lot of people, like, where did you learn about sex? Most of them did not learn from their parents. So just having any kind of conversation with them is huge. But I think you got to meet them at age appropriateness. So pre-puberty, you're going to be pretty basic with them, because for a lot of kids, it can be really shocking. All right? Then post-puberty, you need to continue to have conversations with them, especially with young men. Now, young women struggle with this more and more as well, but young men with sexual attachment, pornography, things like that, that they will often need a sense of accountability. There's a lot of shame that goes along with that. And so a father, especially a man needs to have a real influence in their life with that. Not to say that young women don't do that as well, but again, it's far more prevalent with males. But yeah, you would start out, especially pre-puberty, very basic, that this is how this works, this is how God created it. He created it to be pleasurable, He created it to be within a marriage. It's for the purpose of relationship and procreation, of making babies, basically. Even to as simple as this is just where babies come from. And that you can explain that. We're going to explain this later in life. Then you might get into issues of like pre-puberty, like masturbation and other things like that. Okay? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think 6 years old is great. Like I said, my daughter's 5. I took her on her date Sunday morning. And I took her to Dunkin' Donuts, but I hold the door open for her. I hold her hand. I do all those things, and I tell her this is the way a gentleman treats a lady. I say prince and princess right now because that's her world. And she dresses as a princess when she goes out, so she's got that down. But then you would continue to expand on that. And I also always ask my children, now again, my 18-month-old doesn't know, and he just says da da ba ba, kind of stuff right now. But say, so what's it been like to be my daughter this week? In what way can I be a better daddy for you? And I'm just going to constantly be asking them as they get older. Another thing I also do is once a month I write a letter to my children. They don't know about it. They won't until they're 18, but I talk about them. I speak into their life. I share memories, my favorite memories of that month. When they turn 18, they're going to get probably 200-300 letters from me of speaking into their life. It's kind of like a journal for them that allows you to have influence. Because you're talking about 18 years times 12 months. From the day that I knew my wife was pregnant with my daughter to the day that I knew that we were going to be getting my son, I started those things. And that's another unique way of pursuing your children, right? We're talking about pursuit. Yeah, girls are going into puberty. Yeah, a lot of girls will go into puberty at 9 years old. I had a client whose daughter went to puberty at 8 years old. I mean, it is a lot. It's very young. It depends on when they go. For a girl, like I said, it could be a lot earlier, and it's just if they go into puberty early, then that's when you have that conversation with them. A lot of girls that are highly athletic, they might not go into puberty until they're 14 or 15 years old sometimes. It just depends on their bodies and their construction. But if they start developing earlier in other ways, like getting teeth earlier and talking really soon and losing their teeth really soon, some would say that might be indicative of early puberty as well. That could be just correlational as well. So, yes. No, right. Doesn't mean that they need to be told everything else. They need to be, here's what's happening to your body. Here's why it's happening. Here's how this works in general. But, obviously there's a real age appropriateness to it. The real opportunity comes in if you guys have an ongoing dialogue with your children and they do because they will get exposed to things. I mean, they just will. That they will come and talk to you about it, and then you have a conversation with them. Don't push it away. Don't be awkward with it. Say, okay, look, we're just going to go into this and we're going to have a conversation. Because then you get to define it more for them, and that you set the standard versus whatever they may or may not have been exposed to, which is just out of your control. It's just completely out of your power, out of your control. Yes. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it makes sense. You want to bless your children, and you want to give them the things that they want, and you don't want them to feel left out. And I think that's part of being a good parent, that you want to do those things. But there needs to be limits, there needs to be boundaries, and they need to understand that they're not entitled to these things. And that just because he has an iPhone doesn't mean he has free reign with anything and everything on that iPhone. That you have the password, you can look at it whenever you want. That's the way with my wife. I mean, my wife can get on my phone and look at it whatever she wants, whenever she wants. She has passwords to all my stuff. There's no reason for me to hide anything from her. Just like there's no reason for I am entitled to privacy, even in a marriage, but I don't exercise that really because there's no reason to have that. Because I don't need to be private about anything. I'm an open book to her, And so it can be the same. Now, I'm not asking you to read your children's diaries. All right? That's a little different story. But if they're going to put their diaries on the internet, go ahead and read it. Because it's on the internet. So someone else can. You might as well be. Right? It's a whole different thing. It's a whole different ballgame than it used to be with that. Right. Right. Well, I think that, two kind of different points there. Okay, the question was, sorry, I'm forgetting to repeat. Question was, let me understand this correctly, is how to deal with drugs and alcohol and kind of get connected there and understand.
I understand that part of it. How about the sexting?
Okay, more the sexting part and the sexuality, and he's kind of more high. He's 12 years old. Going to be 13. I think it's very important for a young man, now I'm speaking to a young man, for another man to come into his life and really speak and really define what healthy sexuality is and explain to him the true power that like lust and pornography and sexting and all those kinds of things have. For him to have an understanding like, hey, you got 30 times testosterone that a female does, all right? So take an average woman's sex drive, multiply by 30, and that's average male sex drive, okay? You have 30 times testosterone. There's a reason you're feeling these things. Like a 12-year-old man, their brains are like bathed in testosterone. They're going through like this huge influx. It's just crazy if you get into a 12, 13-year-old mind. Actually, it's scary. But they need to understand that this is where this is coming from. But to have a man in their life continually redirecting them to this is why God created this. This is what's healthy. Because men will seek that for happiness and for their whole lives. I've had guys in my office that have sex with hundreds of women and done everything you could possibly do sexually, and they're the most miserable guys I meet with. They're not satisfied, but they need to understand that. Now you're going to share that with a 12-year-old, obviously, but that you instill in them what healthy sexuality is, what pleasure is, and again, they bring that back to an eternal mindset. Here's how God created this to be. Here's where He created it to be. You're having these feelings. Here's what you can do with them. Here's why you're having them. They're healthy. They're normal, but this is not a healthy, normal way of dealing with it, even if you see everyone else doing that. It's normal to be feeling that. It's just all in how he acts out with that. And there just needs, again, to be an open dialogue. That's difficult sometimes if you don't have a male influence. I have a lot of single moms that come in that don't have a male influence for their sons. And in many ways, I hope that I would be able to provide that. But it's just not quite the same in counseling. You really need someone more available to be able to interact with them. And I often actually find for young girls as well to have a male figure, to have them understand what a healthy male relationship looks like and understand healthy male-female relationship with sexuality. Sometimes that's helpful for a female too. I get a lot of young girls that come in that don't have a good relationship with their dad, and so naturally they're seeking that with other guys, right? And so once they can develop a healthy relationship with a male, they stop sexualizing that with negative male relationships. Yes. Well, I think that they can, sometimes you have to draw that line and say, I don't want you hanging out with that kid, but the better thing to do is that they continue to bring to you what they're hearing, but that they also, you build into them, instill into them, here's what you can say in return, and they can set boundaries, and it depends on their personality. Some kids just don't have a personality where they're able or willing to do that, And so you have to kind of set those boundaries for them. But you want to start with that first before you'd say, hey, I want you to push them away, because that can be kind of difficult, especially going on later in life. Yeah, you want them to be an influence on them versus the other. So, well, guys, I know a lot of you probably have to get home, and we went a little bit over. So if you have any more questions, I'll be here for a while. Please feel free to come up. And I think you had something you want to draw. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nathan. I know everybody appreciates it. Parenting is not easy, and I apologize. I called you Dr. Nathan Oliver earlier. There you go. You've earned it tonight. Maybe it is the future. Who knows? Why don't you, if you would, pick a ticket out of here for us, and then pick another one, and we're going to give away two $50 gift certificates to the King's Academy store or to the cafeteria. So if you've got a girl, maybe the store. If you've got a boy, maybe the cafeteria, how that works. So first of all, number 451575. Got a winner right there. Very good. Come see me afterwards. And then number 451576. Right there. Very good. Thank you all for coming tonight. We, here at King's Academy, we believe parenting is important. We believe it's difficult. We love some of the insight that's been given tonight. Stay and talk a little bit. Share some things. One thing I would say, somebody asked about talking to my wife has a great book that she's used with my daughters to talk through the birds and the bees and whatnot, and I can't for the life of me remember the name of it right now, but it's a wonderful way to start at 5, 6, 7 years old, talking through those things and make it a comfortable question. Do you know the... No, it's not that. I'll remember it when I hear it. Passport to Purity is what she said. There's probably other great books out there, but it's a great way to make an uncomfortable conversation comfortable. So have a wonderful night. Thanks for coming tonight.